Hey friends, I'm Leigh Brown. Welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. Now, today's guest is Mark McGuire, but before you get super excited like I did, because I thought maybe it was that guy who played for the Cardinals and has the home run record, but it's not that Mark McGuire. This one, though, so smart. And the conversation is NSFW. There are a couple of bleeps in it because we were having a really fun conversation. So just forgive the bleeps, what you hear on Crazy Shit. I know you're cool with that because the knowledge he drops, insane. And it's my first time ever encountering a melting body. So enjoy the conversation. I hope I'll see you on the other side.
Hey, Leigh.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, I'm just going to say I was kind of in the back of my head, really hoping that it was the Mark McGuire.
Damn, I'm so sorry to disappoint you.
So just so you know, I'm sure that happens to you in life, but this is when you're supposed to say, I am the real Mark McGuire, and it's okay.
No, well, the problem is I stopped taking steroids, and then I shrunk, and like all the muscle mass was gone. My hair went like brown instead of red. So unfortunately, like I am the real Mark McGuire, just not that version.
We didn't know what all those steroids could do to you. I was going to show you all my Cardinal stuff is actually behind my whiteboard because I'm a big Cardinals fan. So yeah. So how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
Fantastic. So is that a portrait of your dog behind you?
100%.
Is that one of those little services I've seen rolling through my Instagram?
Man, Instagram got me one day. So funny story. I got that for my mom, and my mom was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? I was like, Mom.
Actually, I'm gonna hang it in my house.
Yeah, so I did. And I'm like, and everybody that I do this with is like, yo, is that a picture of your dog? I'm like, absolutely. They're like, yo, where do you get that? And if you were to ask me where I got it from, I honestly couldn't tell you.
Well, it's okay because within 10 minutes, Instagram is going to send me an ad for it because our phones are spying on us. And so then I can put it in the show notes for the episode.
Are they ever? Are they freaking ever?
Goodness, I mean, we won't go down that rabbit hole because that's crazy shit in the world, not just in real estate. It's the loss of privacy. And
you ever see The Social Dilemma? You ever see that documentary?
Oh yeah,
that shit is fucking wild.
Look, as soon as I watched that, I got my kids' phones. I'm like, delete. And then they were actually, well, we should delete more. My son deleted everything except TikTok and YouTube. Mm-hmm. But now he laughs because he knows how the YouTube algorithm works. And so he's like, they're trying to suggest things to me again. But the funniest thing is, and my kids don't watch or listen to the podcast, which is a safe place for me. They watch everything else. He found Alex Jones on his own. And so he watched everything Alex Jones, like everything InfoWars. And so he gets all of these political ads on his YouTube, which is hilarious to me because he's not voting age. And what does my kid do? Because he's basically a wild-eyed conspiracy theorist at 16. He clicks on all of them to make sure they all pay for showing up on his page. And I was like, God, I love this kid.
Savage. That's savage.
Awesome.
That's cool.
But yes, most of them is a mess.
How many kids you got?
I have two. I have a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Good on you.
I love teenagers.
Shit, you are freaking in it. You are in it, huh?
I am. And so I'm trying to talk them out of going to college, and I'm not having any success yet because they seem to think a degree means something. I just don't want to have their brains to be indoctrinated. I want them to just actually get information like engineering and math.
I want them to just go and like,
I
always say to my wife, we don't have kids. And I've talked to her about it. And I was like, well, maybe we go and, maybe we do at some point. And I'm like, I ain't saying for college. I mean, because I own like a bunch of real estate personally, and, single family and commercial shit. And I'm like, I'll buy that. And then I'll take debt out at another point in time. And I'm gonna make the kid take the debt. Should we have a kid? And should that kid go there? I'm fucking making that asshole sign on the debt. And oh, by the way, if you do good and you commit and you're serious, I'll wipe it.
Maybe. I mean,
I'm not going to tell him until the end, by the way. Like, I actually won't tell him, period. I'll just pay it off.
No, I told my kids, I'm like, you can take out loans for college. I can't take out loans for retirement. I think that's where parents make a big mistake. But right now they're paying ungodly amounts of money to get their kids indoctrinated to not work and to not care about the country that is built on liberty and freedom and entrepreneurism. So we got to choose very wisely here. So they're not allowed to go to my alma mater. because I told him, I'm like, I'll burn your trust account to the ground if you go there. So just choose wisely. Instead, you could have the down payment for a business or the down payment for a house. And I think my daughter would rather have a down payment for a business, and my son would rather have a down payment for a house.
I tried to go and get my mom to do that. My mom was like driving the wedding train super hard. And I was like, hey, we don't need to have a wedding. Like, I'll just take the cash and I'll go like invest it. And that didn't work. She wasn't down with that. But
she needs some photos of her baby getting married.
That's pretty much. And I am the oldest too. So I was the oldest, firstborn, you know.
Dance with you. I feel mom on that. Yeah.
Oh man. Goodness gracious. Well, this is going to be fun.
I wrote off my wedding because I was already in real estate when I got married. Invited clients to the wedding, wrote the whole thing off. Thank you very much.
In true real estate fashion, you did that.
And my poor engineer husband is horrified that I did this. I'm like, dude, that was like all of my clients and prospecting at the wedding. I handed out a postcard at the reception.
Did you really?
Yeah, I'm like, Leigh Thomas is now Leigh Brown, and you can still call me for your real estate needs. I was announcing my name change, but I wrote the whole thing off.
You know what? I love the practicality around that. I can also see why your husband would be completely horrified. Like, can totally appreciate that. And God bless that man.
Property. He's in this for life now, so there's nothing he can do.
So you do the real estate thing. Is he still in engineering?
Oh yes, he's been in the same job for 25 years. Yeah,
that's an engineer for you. That sounds good. And he probably got pegged at 100 to 120 grand. Like I feel like with engineering, it's like
where they are forever.
80 grand out of college, and then like 120 grand in 50 years.
And yeah, he drives a Prius, although he recently upgraded to a hybrid Highlander because, you know, engineering types like to game the MPGs and the data.
Well, meanwhile, yesterday I just did the I did the Ferrari and Lamborghini driving experience. I just beat the piss out of a bunch of like supercars. And
so was that the kind where you just basically lay on the gas on their course?
Oh yeah. Oh, you just beat the living shit out of those cars, and like everybody beats the living shit out of it. Which like these cars are made to
was it fun?
Driven. Oh, it's phenomenal. I don't know how much the video was because I literally like I don't even give a fuck. Like here, charge card, but literally went and brought the video. So I got home and showed my wife. So pre-doing like Heartfire and self-storage, I have a residential real estate sales team. I love business, and I realized that residential real estate sales don't love like that business, not recurring revenue, like constant arguments with people who can switch because the wind blew this way instead of that way today. But I brought the two guys on my team have been with me for a couple of years. They got it for me as a Christmas gift. Coolest fucking Christmas gift ever. And so they got pit passes to watch me.
Oh.
And so I went to the thing. I was like, you had to like go to this class to like, you know, they tell you how you're supposed to drive, and like, oh, by the way, if you run a cone over, it's like $10,000. Don't do that. And it's like crazy. And they got the insurance plan, and the deductible is like $6,000, and then you still fucking have to go and like buy the car. It's ridiculous. So I go up to the
really brilliant business model.
Oh, it's like all risk is just completely like, oh, that's your problem. And by the way, like
pay us for all of this too. So
absolutely. So I go to the place to check in, and I'm like, hey, do they ever have cancellations like day of? And they're like, yeah, we get that sometimes. I'm like, hey, do you happen to have any cancellations today? Like around this time? Like, oh yeah, we have 2. And I was like, great, I will take both. So I surprised them because they thought they were going to watch. I surprised them yesterday and bought them each their own drive. And they were sitting there making fun of me, being like, oh, if you drive like a pussy, I'm going to take the wheels off your car you drove here. And I was like, hey, guess what? Both of you get the opportunity to not drive like pussies now. So do me a favor and don't drive like a bitch.
And they're never going to leave you now, because that is the single best gift an employer could give to an employee right there, or to a partner, not employees, obviously 1099s, I'm sure.
Yeah. It was freaking hilarious. And all of a sudden, the best part is they went from like to like the realization of, oh shit, I can't talk any more shit, and I have to drive the car that fast now. So now I have to do that.
Have to, because it's on video now. They make records of this. So
yeah.
Hey, so what does it cost to do that experience?
It was like, so by the way, pro tip, buy it at the racetrack day of, you get 30% off. Sucker for a deal.
Because they got to fill in those gaps.
Exactly.
Right?
So like whatever, like you were there waiting for eternity anyways. And it's kind of cool to like watch it ahead of time. So I think it was like 4:30 for and it's like 8 minutes. I mean, yeah. Now, granted, it's literally 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, but it's this kind of an experience. I thought you were going to say it was like $2,000.
So it's 4:30 per drive. So they got me the Italian experience. So I drove the Lamborghini Huracan and the Ferrari GTB 488. And it means
nothing to me except they're fancy fast cars. And I watched
fancy fast cars.
Ferrari, so I know that part.
Yeah. So like honestly, still means nothing to me. I'll forget the cars that I drove probably in a week, but I'll remember being in the vehicle and like
feeling.
Yo, it is crazy when you're on the straightaway and your foot is to the floor and you're like, everything's like, it's just all flying past you. It is. And how long it takes to stop is actually crazy. So I don't know if you've watched the Formula One Drive to Survive. If you haven't yet, check that shit out because it's nutty. And it just gave me a whole new appreciation for what those dudes do.
I'm in NASCAR country. So the Charlotte Motor Speedway is about spitting distance from my office. And so we're, stock car ovals. It's not the same thing as Formula One, but what I would worry about I have never done like the Richard Petty driving experience, which is here, even though one of my clients worked there forever and was trying to get me to do it. I'm like, what do you do when you got the floor on in the straightaway and you have to turn? I would be the one that was like, because I drive probably not the best driver in the world. I would totally go into the wall.
Guilty.
Squirrel.
oh no, I'm totally like that same guy. But what I will tell you is, have you ever had an experience where everything gets quiet and like you're just so locked in? I don't know if you've ever done like mountain biking, like downhill mountain
biking. That's called a group photo. Haven't you noticed in a group photo, everybody gets really silent staring at the phone? And I really don't know why we all get silent staring at a camera, but carry on.
No, so I can't say I've noticed that, but now I'm going to take note and I'm going to be like, yo, Leigh, you're right. But I there's like times, and the one buddy who like have been my best friend for 20 years, like he has a bike again and he's got 2 daughters and I'm literally like, bro, what are you doing with the freaking motorcycle again? And he's driving 160 on the way home on his bike. And he's like, you're basically on the edge of death. And so your brain just quiets everything. And literally it just goes right here and you hear nothing and you see nothing about it other than surviving in front of you. It's the craziest thing.
I may not have ever been in that space except when I was giving birth, and it probably felt like the edge of death then. But, if I had little kids, I think I'd probably kill my husband if he was driving at 160. So if his wife listens to this, she ought to put.
I'm going to leave that out. I'm definitely going to leave that out. And if this, let's redact that last 30 seconds. All she's
got to do is shave her legs one time, and that'll straighten him out from now. I'll just point that out.
Yo, all I can say is, you told me that yesterday. I'm like, dude, you got 2 little daughters that are like 2 and 3 years old. Do not do this dumb shit, bro. Like, I love you to the end of the world. But it was funny because he's like, I feel more secure on 2 wheels going 120 miles an hour than I do on 4. And I'm literally like, hell no.
No, and you probably shouldn't know what it feels like in either scenario.
I mean, yesterday was like controlled circumstances. We hit like
that's a little different. Yeah, and they do the little training class, and they know what to do, and the medics are there too. So it's enclosed space.
Yeah.
So talk to me about real estate a little bit. So you started in the residential side. Where in the country are you?
Yeah, so I'm northeast in Philly, like outside Philadelphia suburbs, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, Bucks County, Pennsylvania. We serve
Bucks County. That's where the good stone is from. I know Bucks County stone.
Well, there you go.
I actually sold a house here that was made out of it.
Really?
It got struck down here like 100 years ago.
Yeah, I mean,
so cool.
So Bucks County's got some, pretty. I mean, it's not mainline money. Where like mainline is like more, Montgomery County and then Chester County. Like it was actually named for the train line that goes into Philly. That's why it's called the main line. But all the old money, like all the executives, kept pushing farther and farther and farther out. So Montgomery, Bucks counties was where we serve, and basically. Started in residential space and then started investing. So I got my license in 12. Very convenient time to have entered real estate because.
But that's when the Army crawl out was starting. So you got in at the very gully.
Yep. I remember when people were like, you'd get a listing and it would just sit and you just beg somebody to show the listing. It wasn't like, oh, please bring me a good offer.
No,
it was please just show my property.
Somebody go set up a showing. These sellers are going to kill my nerves. And they're like, I'll go look at it. And they report back like, it's fine.
They're like, yeah, like my buyers are going to take some time to think about it. And then you on the agent side were like,
what can we do?
I'll talk to you when you just let me know what you guys think when you come to your own conclusions 2 weeks from now. Now, in the market that we've been in the last 2 years, it's like, oh, hey, by the way, you have 1 hour to put together the world's worst terms ever. And as far as you're concerned as a buyer, waive your firstborn child, waive everything, give your firstborn child away. And, and settle in 30 days. And I don't know, like appraisal, not an appraisal.
And the seller wants to stay for 6 months after closing too. Don't forget that part. They want to lease back for free because they don't have anywhere to go. But it's interesting though, because the world you're talking about from 2012, we have a lot of real estate professionals who've only been in the business since 2020. They got in at the beginning of COVID. They have no idea what a normal market looks like, much less a challenged market. So I think it's going to be a Wild West for more than just a minute. So you started off looking back, we can say it was a good time to get started. At the time, what a rough time to get started because buyers were still hesitant and sellers were a lot of them unable to sell, the ones who could. What a crazy time. And then what happened? You said residential wasn't your jam. How long did it take you to figure that out?
So residential 100% was not my jam. Kind of really learned that in 2019. I like business. That's what I do like. And I love residential. There's all sorts of protection measures in place. And furthermore, the people that what kills me is the wholesaling, right? You get the people that are sending 1 million pieces of mail and look, if you're a wholesaler, I'm sorry, I'm about to knock you right now. But
because we'll point out there are a few good wholesalers who do things correctly and with the best of intentions, but it is not all wholesalers. Let's just point that out. The couple of good ones of you that are about to get mad, we're not talking about you. We're talking about all the rest of them. So carry on, Mark.
Yeah. So a lot of wholesalers, they call them equity strippers, and they just strip equity away from people who just don't know that they have it. Right. And a lot of this, where I'm at, where I see it, is older houses. I call them the grandmom specials that, the husband's passed away and the husband traditionally dealt with the finances, which was super common with gender roles, at least in my area. And, now the grandmom, they bought their house for $30,000. It's worth probably for real, $150,000 to $200,000. And if it's fixed up, they'd go and they'd get 4, right? And you get someone who comes in and says, hey, yeah, I'll give you $100,000. And they just start low and just see where the yes point is.
Right.
And you're just taking advantage of people, sweet little people that they don't even know what they don't know. And they're looking at it as a come up because they bought it for $30,000 as far as they know. So they tripled their money.
And it's cash and they can have it right now and there's no inspections and it's going to be so easy. You can have your money in 7 days.
Yeah. So it's one thing, I while I have come across opportunities where I could have 100% done that, in my moral integrity was man, that's not the right way to do it. And hey, this is worth a lot more than this. And that person has that one house, right? That's what they got. And I don't feel, someone else, a lot of people, they'll just say, hey, it's a good deal for me, so I'll take it. To me, I'm not about that, zero sum game. I'm about the win-win. So, commercial.
But I mentioned the wholesalers doing it right, though. For you who are listeners who are thinking it all sounds icky, the wholesalers who do it right do tell grandma, I can give you 100 cash as is in 7 days, or we can fix it up and you can get X, or we can do it on the regular market and get Y. The good ones are giving all the scenarios. And sometimes grandma will say, I need the cash. I need this to go away. And she would choose the lowest option. But the ones who make us angry are the ones who do not give the full spectrum of scenarios, because as the property owner, she should know all the options. And this might be the best option for somebody in a bad spot. But too often it's what Mark's describing of they weren't given the whole story. And so the investor wins and the homeowner is left out in the cold, and that's not right. So I have to add that in, because some people do need an out, but it's not nearly as often as it's happening.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people that are just getting told, they're getting sold a bill of goods and they're getting told things that aren't true. And that's the part to me that doesn't resonate. So commercially, honestly, it comes down to like, may the best man win. If you can commercially, you're rewarded for your ability to create revenue and manage expenses. That's how value is derived. Right. So commercially, you have net operating income divided by your cap rate equals your valuation. And in an up market, that's going to be good for you. You know what I mean? Now, down market, we'll see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years as things start to turn around. But
I think creativity is going to have to come in the next market as you see different commercial spaces get repurposed for transitional uses. That's a whole different discussion. And so I think that starts to flow in there with the numbers, because I think it's going to be a whole different market 5 years from now than it is right now.
100%. And I think
space usage and all that.
Well, I mean, you look at malls and you look at, as Amazon's kind of pecking away at their market share of retail, and you look at, you look at all sorts of things. They're all coming at it. So I'll be interested to see that. I think there's going to be some repurposing of space, but also debt terms are so different, right now. And that's the thing in in the residential world, right? You have 30-year and you have 15-year, and they're fixed. Commercially, you have 20-year, 25-year, 30-year amortization. Then you have interest-only periods. Then you have wraps. Then you have, swaps. Then you have.
Don't forget your balloons. The balloons.
Yeah. And then you got 5-year, 7-year, 10-year terms. So it's like you have all these different things. And that's what, that's what took me. So I really started to get, I spent my time, 2013, I bought my first property. 2015, bought my second one. 2017, then I bought my personal residence, which was a small, modest, twin home. Cause I'm I want to keep my burn rate low so I can keep my savings rate high. And, that's how then next year I bought a fourplex and then a duplex. Then I bought 11 units, then another 4 units. So it just kind of kept going. And I started to learn about commercial debt, and I started to do syndications. So I was doing commercial syndications as a limited partner or an LP, where you literally write a check for $25,000, $50,000, $100,000, whatever the investment requires. And then you get access to knowledge for the sponsor to say, hey, here's our underwriting, here's the business plan, here's our thought process around, costs, and here's the market, here's why we like this market, here's the factors we like. So all that happened. And I started doing that from 2017 until 2019. And I was like, damn, I can do this for me. So that was how the transition from residential to commercial really happened. And it wasn't until 2020 where I really started to shift.
All right. So I'm kind of fascinated by your viewpoint on that. And I've had several people on the show talking about syndications. And by the way, friends, if you need more information on that, just click on one of the episodes about syndication. There's a lot of the definition and background in that. But you made an amazing point, because often they just talk about people participating in the syndicate. They fail to mention what you actually bought was not just the financial potential, you bought the knowledge. And that's an amazing way to think about it, because too often, it goes back to what we were saying about wholesalers, they want to jump in, make as much cash as possible, line their pockets and move on. And you're investing in somebody else's idea and their business plan, but it's so you can grow and gain. And hopefully there is a financial benefit to the end of it. That's not guaranteed, of course, but you're guaranteed to learn things. And I love that perspective. And it pretty much applies to everything around real estate if you're doing it correctly.
Well, it's all about getting, you got to learn before you can earn. And
it's about good to great, right? I see you got Jim's book on the shelf behind you there. Yeah.
Yep. So it's all about learning before you can earn. And I mean, at the end of the day, everybody wants to come in and just make money. You can't be the CEO if you don't know the multiple facets of a company, right?
Right.
And nor, I did condos, single family condo. I bought my first single family condo in 2013. And it was
that was the first property, was a condo?
Yep. For me. Yeah. And so I was working in property management at the time. So I had my real estate license. I was working in property management as the assistant to the property manager, meaning like as the assistant to the maintenance guy, right? Like I was like
Dwight Schrute of that property management.
I was not even Dwight Schrute. Like I was,
you were Ryan when he was an intern?
I was basically Kevin.
Oh, Kevin. We love Kevin.
Bless his heart. So I basically, I was the guy that got every shitty job, like whatever the job was that nobody wanted to do.
Go do this, Mark.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, there's an attic that's like accumulated crap for the last, 20 years, and it's 110 degrees today, and that's not the temperature in the attic. That's just the outside temperature. So do me a favor. Can you clean that outside? It's going to take about 7 or 8 hours. Cha-ching. Sold. So I was that guy, and taught me a lot about what I didn't want to do when I grew up.
Sure.
And really that was a means to an end for me. I was playing in a band professionally at the time, and I would do that in between like touring and recording and all this stuff. So like I had flexibility with it, which was the trade-off. And I made pretty good money for the time. But like I literally was the guy that got all the work that no one else wanted to do. And I guess I did it long enough where I got to learn some of the trades and learn some of the other stuff. So then when I bought that condo, I knew how to do all this stuff because I had been doing that since like 2007, 2008. So I had been grinding and doing all the crap work till I learned plumbing and electrical and flooring and painting and finishing and, all that stuff. And it got to the point where like I could do it, or I had the connections to bring in people that I'm like, hey, I know how to do this, but I'm not that good, to where I feel good about the end result I could produce.
Well, and even so, you hire somebody, you actually know if they're doing it correctly, not just that you know what to ask of them, but you know what it is. And I think there's a huge knowledge gap for a lot of investors in this space because they have to hire everything out because they have no knowledge, but then they hire it out, and you have to have 100% trust in your subs. And I wish we lived in a world where you could 100% trust all your subs, but that's not really the labor scenario right now.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, it's never the labor scenario. I mean, I don't care what market you're in. So, I mean, when push really came to shove, it was honestly just doing that allowed me to kind of like scale up. And it wasn't like I went from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. Like, I mean, in theory, that's good that it would work that way, but you'd have to find properties that fit that mold first. And so, I mean, I think it's kind of one of those things. It is a gradual but sudden. And then all of a sudden, like 2020, bought 11 units, then 2 condos. And then like on that time, like that was what I was buying outside of like the GP side on the syndications of self-storage. We added in 2021 about 400,000 net rentable square feet of self-storage.
So how did you pick up a self-storage facility? Were you out there prospecting for it, or did it come to you through your networks?
No. So I was working with Hearthfire Self-Storage and Hearthfire Capital. We basically syndicate self-storage. I got introduced through a group I'm in called Abundance to Sergio and Corinne Altamare. Phenomenal people, love them to death. And they basically were looking to, I mean, Serge and Corinne got started in self-storage in like 2017, and self-storage had a meteoric rise in like 2020, like right after the post-pandemic, because self-storage captures transition.
Yeah.
So they had a meteoric rise in revenue and rate because everybody was moving. Everybody was moving everywhere. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're moving up, you're moving out of a rental in the city, you're moving to another rental because you need a bigger space because now you're working from home. Self-storage captures transition. And that, like, Serge and Corinne had already been down the road exploring self-storage, understanding the dynamics, understanding the tech stack, understanding the operations. They had spent a couple of years doing that, got their first facility in 2019, and then were looking to grow bigger. And I came on board when we were acquiring a 3-property, like 80,000 square foot portfolio in central Pennsylvania.
So in that transition, it's a big move, right? So from residential to multifamily is a fairly smooth transition once you learn the numbers, because it's still residential form housing. To go to self-storage is an entirely different space. So what was the biggest lesson you learned in making that transition, or what was the mindset shift? If you are remotely awake then you know that we are heading into some really tricky economic times. We have home buyers that have put the kibosh on buying because they have interest rate shock. We have sellers who have found out suddenly their houses aren't dipped in 14 karat gold. And as a realtor, you are still trying to keep up with the business you have and trying to answer questions in the meantime, while also managing sky high fuel cost at the pump. Never fear, because my new video course is coming out right now, and it's called How to Dominate During a Recession. Look, I've been a realtor for 22 years. I came through the last recession by the skin of my teeth. Actually, not even the skin of my teeth. My business went up every year during the Great Recession, and it's all because of education and getting in front of the curve so that I could serve as many neighbors as possible and help them weather this storm as well. So this course is 4 modules. There might even be some bonus content for you. And I have priced it so that everybody can get a hold of it and go out there and do great things for the American dream and for home ownership. The price is $199. Click on this link. If you take action, you can be the one who brings great information and great solutions, and also paired with realism and optimism into the marketplace that you serve. I am delighted to bring this out as quickly as possible because, friends, there's no time like the present to make sure our neighbors are stronger and we protect the American dream.
Well, the mindset shift was like, wow, I know enough to do this. Like, that was actually the mindset shift. If you want to boil it down to the simplest thing,
That's
it was
amazing.
Like, I'm like, yo, damn, I got this.
I can do this.
Yeah. So I remember thinking, like, when I would see these deals and sponsors, and like, I was a long time looking at syndication deals constantly, like vetting them, evaluating them, looking at the business plans, looking at the underwriting assumptions, debt, loan to value, construction costs, looking at what people were doing from a tactical standpoint. And I was doing it in industrial, hospitality, multifamily. Self-storage, I actually got exposed to when my family was doing some 1031 exchange work into these Delaware statutory trusts, because most syndicators won't accept 1031 funds, have to be through a TIC agreement. It's all this crazy stuff. Google it. But it really came down to, I can do it. It was a mindset shift in belief in myself, and that, like, these people that I had put on a pedestal really weren't that different from me. And it was just up to me to just execute.
I think that's true even of buying that first rental property. And a lot of people never buy the first investment because of what you just said. They just don't think they're qualified, capable, knowledgeable enough, and they don't do anything. And then you wind up farther down the road and say, golly, I wish I'd started doing something sooner, because you often do know enough if you'll just pay attention and read past the headline.
I mean, super transparently, I wish I had got started in commercial sooner. The velocity. Now, granted, the velocity can work both ways. The velocity can go work really well in your favor, and it can work not so really well against your favor when if you get the project wrong and you don't know what you're doing, you can get burned. You can get wiped out. And that's the thing. It's like, you just got to push yourself where, it's not going to wipe you out to the point that, like, literally you're zero.
And I know it's a wildly unpopular thing for me to say, but that's also why I didn't ever worry about people that would talk about President Trump's couple of bankruptcies. I mean, he bets big in that commercial space. Sometimes you get it wrong, but you look at what got built after those failures has been life-changing for a lot of people, as far as the number of jobs that are created, the amount of space that's created. You can't look at a failure as a mistake necessarily. It's just part of that transition period of knowledge, and hopefully you just don't make the mistakes multiple times. But the bigger the stakes, the bigger the failures, and it's got to be okay. I think the world has gotten allergic to failing, and if you're going to make commercial investments, you better be able to fail or able to be creative, because we already mentioned the transition of space, which is happening now. And I think it's pretty exciting. But if you're not open to creativity, your bigger opportunity to fail is right in front of you. So anyway, that being said, of course, we kind of rambled about a lot of stuff here, but my show is all about the crazy shit in real estate and the things that you've encountered along the way that make you say, nobody's ever going to believe this. I'd love to know what story you came here to tell that's actually going to top the opening conversation about driving cars. And so what you got?
Yeah. So the The craziest story I have about real estate was before I ever bought my first one. I was working as the maintenance guy, or the assistant to the maintenance guy. And I was cleaning stoves that day. And I happened to be in the supply room, and I was like, this is strange. There's like some like water condensation on the concrete hex grid above me. So like the way that this building was constructed, it has concrete like flooring in between levels. This is a garden style apartment complex, 50 unit building. So I'm cleaning these stoves, which were from 1970. The particular tenant mix we have is very, very hard on stoves. They cook on high heat all day long. So they melt all these stove terminals. And all we did is replace new ones. So we said, hey, we're going to give you the ones from 1970 because they have ceramic blocks. So I'm cleaning them, just getting like scraping blade, oil off of all of them. It like kind of smells a little interesting. Like the smell was different. And I'm like, I can't place this smell. So I get a call from my boss, who is the maintenance guy. He's like, hey, can you go check on unit D8? Haven't seen the guy in a couple of weeks. And yeah, they're just saying that like there's a smell coming from his unit. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. D8 is right above, directly above my head. Did not know this at the time. So I'm not the head maintenance guy. I should not be handling a potential death claim, by the way. So I go up the stairs and I walk into the hallway and I'm like, what is this awful smell? It just smells like rot. And at this point, I'm like, it's all starting to hit me. I'm like, oh, there's water. Oh my God, that's a body. That is a body. So I'm like, no, this can't be. This can't be. Just can't be. So I go outside. The mailman happens to be outside the mailbox cluster. And I'm like, I'm stalling now because in my gut, I know the truth here. I'm going to find the dead guy. And so I like hit the mailman up and I'm like, hey, can you go check out unit D8? And he's like, oh yeah, that mailbox is completely full. I haven't put any mail in this mailbox because that mail hasn't been taken out for 2 weeks. So I'm like, great. It's confirmed now. So I knock on the door and I literally step in and there's just flies and just like the smell I will never forget. And I literally got 2 feet in. I see the light on in the bathroom and it looks like a black shirt in the bathroom. And I just like started to feel like I'm going to vomit. I just ran out. I was like, I can't do this. So I called my boss. I was like, hey man, pretty sure, I knew the guy's name was George. I was like, pretty sure George died. Like a black t-shirt in the bathroom. Oh, by the way, this man was 350 pounds. So the cops get called. There's 2 cops show up. And there's a young guy and an older guy, and the older guy makes the young guy go in.
Of course he does.
So the young guy comes in, the dude walks back into the hallway, and he comes back white as a ghost. And the guy goes, yeah, he's dead. And the guy's, you all right? And apparently this is this guy's first death call.
Of course it was.
So then you call the coroner has to come out, be like, yeah, he is melting into the earth. And I'm like, oh, hey, by the way, he's melting into the floor in the unit below him where I've been working all day. Yep.
So was he in the tub? Is that what the water was? Or was
dude
it just
died? So this guy, so apparently.
Or was the body liquids coming out of his body?
Well, your body is composed of mostly water. So when you die, first of all, my wife actually is an ICU nurse. So when you die, usually you release your bowels. Right. And then also as your body decomposes, because he was sitting there in an unair conditioned apartment for 2 weeks in the middle of July. Let me tell you how that went. So
that explains flies.
Yeah. So then basically the water of your body just starts to leak out because you lose retention. And so all this guy's like basically biological fluid was dripping down into the room where I was working all day.
How many times did you shower after that day? Like 14 times? Did you stop showering? Because I don't know that I ever would.
To be transparent, I really don't know how many times I showered, but I stood in the shower and just contemplated my job for a while after that.
as your property manager boss is giggling somewhere, the maintenance.
Oh, and that guy totally sold me up the river, and
he's calling his buddy at the police department. He's like, I got my young guy. Did you get yours?
Yeah. He sold me up the river. He knew he was selling me up the river. And I was just like, dude, that's messed up, man. What the heck? I was like 20 years old taking a death call.
I mean, what do you do next? Does the coroner take the body so you don't have to mess with it? And then you have to clean the place out? Like,
so it's totally not on me at that moment in time, right? It's because like the coroner's got to come in and like confirm that, oh, yes, I, as the assistant to the maintenance guy, did not go and kill this guy 2 weeks ago and then just report it after the fact.
I forgot about that piece. So you were being questioned?
I did get questioned. I'm like, dude, listen, I don't want to be here. So whatever it is that I need to provide to you to not be around this any longer, like have it here. Like, what do you want me to do? So that happened. And then you call in like a hazmat, like the restoration companies a lot of times. So I don't know, pick whatever in your area, but like
we just use ServPro. They're a national franchise.
So ServPro will do hazmat. So that's a hazmat issue that a ServPro franchise will handle.
That's why I would never buy a ServPro franchise. I'll just be honest with you, because I thought they just cleaned up after floods and fires.
Floods, fires, death.
Dead people. No.
Yeah.
Has
anyone ever told you about finding a dead person who melted?
Not that melted. I mean, I had a dead guy, but he was in an open house and the agent was holding the open house who didn't know the seller was dead in the master bedroom, but it was a fresh death. It wasn't like 2 weeks of flies and melting.
Who found him?
The listing agent did while he had buyers on the property. So then he had to call the police and say, I think my seller's dead. And he had to tell the buyers, you can't buy the house right now. And then he never sold the house because the family took the listing. So it's a whole
Oh my God, that poor soul.
And he's an amazing agent too. I love him all to pieces. It's been his go-to story for years. Oh, and people wonder why realtors drink. This is why.
I wasn't even a realtor at this point. I was just an unassuming idiot at the time.
And you probably thought realtors were the fancy people who just got to dress up and
I did have that assumption at one point in time. And then like I'd be going to work in my dress clothes because my mom's dream, when I dropped out of college, my mom was like really upset. She was a teacher, right? So when I dropped out of college to go do the band thing, my mom was like Christmas was really bad that year. It was fall semester. And then I went to do real estate and I was like dressing in a tie and like dress clothes. And there was all of a sudden meeting her image expectation of what I would be when I grew up.
Oh, she was.
And
proud.
then I'd come home with like ruined shirts and my shoes were scuffed. And cause I'd crawl around in attics and be like in bank owned properties. Cause 2012, that's what that was.
Yeah.
And then she'd yell at me for that. I'm like, Mom, what do you want me to do? Keep a change of clothes in the car and show up like looking like a bum? Like, what do you want?
So before I let you off the show, what band were you in?
The name of the band was Bel Air.
So what kind of band was this? Was it a covers band for punk or what?
No, it was originals. We ended up getting signed to RCA Records. I actually did not take the deal. I had more money pending in commissions than I was going to get from the signing bonus. And I'm like, I'm going to sign 7 album cycles, which is like 14 to 21 years, depending upon timing. I was like, this is a bad deal and I don't have to take this and I'm not going to sign this. So I ended up parting ways. And I mean, it was good. It was mutual. Like music was shifting. It became much more electronic. I played drums and I was very I liked the organic sound, like the Kings of Leon, like the script and like that vibe. Loved that era of music. And then it became like Skrillex and like, Avicii and like, I like that, but like, I like real rock and like real music. And that just got totally messed up.
You love the Gypsy Kings, don't you? Cause that's my boys. I love the Gypsy Kings.
I have not heard of the Gypsy Kings and now I'm going to check them out.
Oh,
I insulted you. I'm sorry.
Prepare yourself for like amazing acoustic, everything, no auto-tune, obviously.
Beautiful. Well, consider me searching them right now.
Consider yourself addicted here in just a minute. And then you're going to have, there's this really beautiful couple of romantic songs that you will dance to with your wife and she'll fall back in love with you again. It's amazing.
Cool. Love it.
So if anybody wants to reach out to you about what you're doing in syndication or in any of the spaces where you're currently educating other investors, how can they best find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. That's the best way, linkedin.com/investing with Mark. You want to check out Hearthfire, hfirecapital.com/contact.
I am going to check out Hearthfire because that's the next thing I want to do is self-storage. And I have not ever pulled the trigger because I've only done residential and multifamily. Got to get past that mindset. So maybe I'll be your next student of self-storage there, because North Carolina just named the #1 state economy, the #1 place for businesses to move, which means we need more self-storage. So
crazy market there. Crazy.
Hey, Mark, thanks for coming on the show. This is one of the best conversations I've had. I have enjoyed the heck out of this.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Leigh.
All right, friends, if you enjoyed Mark, then give him some comments and some likes and loves down here on the show. All of his contact information is in the show notes for this episode. So please reach out and learn some stuff. You might get to learn it alongside me. In the meantime, I'll see you next time on Crazy Shit. So if you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe to this channel, turn on the bell, and catch another amazing episode by clicking above. Crazy Shit in Real Estate is also available in all of your normal podcast apps. So if that's where you like to hang out, go find me, click subscribe, and most importantly, leave me a review that says you think I'm awesome, my guests are awesome, or this content is just exactly what you were looking for. And then, by the way, if there's something you need, you want to learn about something, you can comment below anytime. You can also send me a direct message if you need to remain anonymous. No judgment. But anyway, I'll only judge if you forget to subscribe and click. I'll see you next time.